Hi, my name is Paul, and I want to share some things I hope will change how you think about homelessness. Since 2014, I've been working on the streets, delivering services directly to people experiencing homelessness. I've seen what works and what doesn't work, and with few exceptions, we're doing it all wrong. But before I tell you what I think the solution is, I want to share a little of my story with you. In the spring of 1988, I was 26 years old and I was homeless. I woke up on the floor of an empty house on a bed I'd made of bubble wrap and packing blankets I'd stolen from the back of a moving truck. I was filthy, sick, and given up for dead by most of the people in my life, including me. I was an addict who had lost everything. I had privilege, white and middle-class privilege that should have protected me from ending up on the streets. And I was ashamed I couldn't keep it together. But addiction doesn't care about privilege, and neither do the circumstances that can lead to homelessness. What saved me wasn't just a program or a policy, it was a community. People who showed up consistently, people who knew my name, who believed I was worth saving even when I didn't believe it myself. The most important person in that community was a man named Ed, who guided me through the first 23 years of my journey. Ed was more than just a mentor. He was an example, and the most loving person I'd ever known. Someone who understood that to keep his own life, he needed to help others. And it took 2 years of daily support, meetings, lots of coffee, and friends who wouldn't give up on me before I could sustain my own recovery. 2 years. My first job was as a night security guard at a hotel. At 6'2" and 250 pounds, I wore my only qualifications for that job. 5 years after that, I was an executive at Hilton and bought my first house. And 5 years after that, I was living in LA, working in television. All of this happened in community. I wasn't qualified for half those jobs, but I learned to work. Ed taught me something crucial. Recovery isn't a solo journey. It's a community activity. And so is ending homelessness. Now, I've spent 10 years working with thousands of people experiencing homelessness across Los Angeles County. I've organized events serving dozens to thousands of people at a time. I've watched people transform their lives, and I've watched people die waiting for help that never came. Here's what I've learned. The system we've built to address homelessness, what some call the Homelessness-Industrial Complex, isn't designed to end homelessness. It's designed to manage it. This isn't because the people in these organizations are bad people, they're not, but the systems they're working with prioritize programs over people, the creation of reports that keep the dollars flowing. And it hasn't worked. It won't work. The scale of homelessness has overwhelmed our systems, burning out professionals and breaking the trust of the people they serve. This failure has cost the lives of thousands, condemned to death for being poor. We're spending nearly $1 million to build each one-bedroom unit of affordable housing in LA. Meanwhile, 230 people lose their housing every day. But I've also seen what works. Community-based solutions that engage people in their own recovery. Neighbors helping neighbors, love in action. I've seen it work all across LA. Housed and unhoused neighbors working side by side. I've seen it in faith communities that understand their job isn't to fix people, but to love them. When I was running mobile showers in San Francisco, we identified a series of small changes that could make a huge difference, something we called radical hospitality. We brought an unexpected level of care to the streets. Hot water, clean towels, remembering people's names, and people transformed. Not because of the shower, it was never really about the shower, because we recognized the dignity of every guest, because we looked at them and saw unlimited potential instead of a case number. The solution to homelessness already exists. It's the same thing that saved my life, community. Neighbors who know each other's names, show up when somebody needs help. We used to do this better, but we've lost the understanding that taking care of each other is everyone's responsibility, not just the job of paid professionals. As we begin this conversation, let me be clear about something from the start. I will never blame people experiencing homelessness for their circumstances. Nobody grew up wanting to be homeless. This wasn't on anyone's vision board. But life happens. Addiction, mental illness, job loss, family breakdown, domestic violence, medical bankruptcy. And if you don't have the safety nets that often come with privilege, you can end up with no good choices left. What's wrong on this equation isn't the behavior of people experiencing homelessness. It's ours, and it's on us, you and me, those of us privileged enough to wake up this morning with a roof over our heads to change how we see and serve our most vulnerable neighbors. I know what I'm proposing sounds idealistic. Individual action against a massive crisis, neighbors helping neighbors. But I've seen it work. I've lived it. I've organized it. I've watched people who were written off by every system transform into community leaders. I've seen neighborhoods that were supposedly hopeless become models of collective care. So here's what I'm asking you to consider. That person living in a tent at the end of your block isn't a problem to be dealt with. They're your neighbor who needs help. What if instead of calling the police or complaining to the city, you walked over and introduced yourself, asked their name, found out what they actually need, and helped them find it? That would be revolutionary. This approach works because it's based on something that can't be defunded or bureaucratized or politicized. The basic human need to belong, to be known, to matter to someone. When we create communities where everyone belongs, where everyone has something to contribute, where everyone is accountable to and for each other, we won't just end homelessness. We'll discover what it means to be truly human together. Join us in this work. This is one of the greatest things we will ever accomplish. We can end homelessness. We can end the isolation and disconnection that makes people vulnerable to crisis. We can build communities that are resilient enough to stand by someone for however long recovery takes. If this resonates with you, subscribe to this channel. I'm going to keep sharing what I've learned, telling stories of hope, and showing you how to be part of the solution. Join SecondGrace.LA. That's the online community I started for people who want to end homelessness through community action. But most importantly, learn the name of just one unhoused person in your neighborhood. Just one. Say hello. Ask what they need. Don't try to fix their life on day one. Just be a neighbor. This won't be easy, but it will change you, just as it has changed everyone who has chosen to walk this path with open hearts and open hands. We must build communities strong enough to catch people when they fall and patient enough to walk with them until they can stand on their own. I'm so glad you've watched this far. Welcome to Letters to the Housed. Let's end homelessness together. To learn more about Second Grace, follow us on Substack, Blue Sky, and at paulasplund.com. And to get notified whenever a new video comes out, hit the subscribe button below. Thank you. See you soon.